There is a side of the moon that no human eye has ever seen from Earth. Not in all of recorded history. Not from any mountain, any telescope, any vantage point on the surface of this planet. The moon rotates at exactly the same rate as it orbits the Earth, a phenomenon so precise it seems almost deliberate, which means that the same face is always turned toward us and the other face is always turned away. Always. In every culture, in every civilization, in every myth and legend and religious tradition that has ever looked up at the night sky and tried to make sense of what was looking back, nobody knew what was on the other side. And into that not knowing, humanity poured everything. Every fear, every hope, every story about what lies beyond the knowable. The dark side of the moon became the great screen onto which human imagination projected its most private things. The dead, the mad, the magical, the monstrous, the divine. Tonight we go there. Not with a spacecraft. With a story. Fact 1. The reason we only ever see one face of the moon from Earth is called tidal locking. It is not a coincidence, and it is not magic, though the precision of it is remarkable enough to have seemed like both to every culture that noticed it. Billions of years ago, when the moon was younger and closer and rotating more freely, the gravitational pull of the Earth exerted a tidal force on the lunar rock, the same force that pulls our oceans into bulges, but acting on solid stone instead of water. The rock deformed very slightly into a slight elongation pointing toward Earth. And over millions of years, the friction of that deformation slowed the moon's rotation, degree by imperceptible degree, until it matched its orbital period exactly. A spinning top, slowed and captured, locked in place, so that from that point forward, for billions of years through every civilization that rose and fell beneath it, the moon showed Earth exactly one face, and kept the other to itself. Fact 2. The ancient Greeks called the visible face of the moon by names they knew well. Selene was the moon goddess herself, the light, the presence, the face that rose and crossed the sky and set. They could see her. They could map her craters, though they called them something else, trace the dark Maria they imagined as seas, identify the patterns they turned into stories. But the Greeks also understood, in a purely astronomical sense, that the moon had a side they could not see. They did not have a name for the goddess of the hidden face. The named, known, navigable Selene faced them. Whatever lay on the other side of Selene's head did not have a name in Greek, did not have a story. The absence of a story in a culture that told stories about everything is itself remarkable. Some things were simply too far outside the circle of the known to be given a name. Fact 3. The moon drives people mad. Or so every culture in recorded history has at various times believed. The word lunacy comes directly from luna, the Latin word for moon. The word lunatic carries the same root. The idea that the full moon causes erratic, dangerous, or delusional behavior in human beings, and in animals, appears in ancient Mesopotamian medical texts, in Greek and Roman literature, in medieval European law, in traditional medicine across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Medieval English law recognized a category of legal incompetence called lunacy, specifically tied to the lunar cycle. Someone deemed a lunatic was considered more or less competent depending on the phase of the moon. Whether the moon actually causes madness is a question modern science has investigated extensively. The evidence is, at best, inconclusive. What is not inconclusive is the universality of the belief. Every culture looking at the moon arrived at the same conclusion. Something is happening up there. And whatever it is, it reaches us. Fact 4. In many ancient traditions, the dark side of the moon, the unseen face, was not conceived as a spatial location but as a state of being. The new moon, when the moon's lit face is turned entirely away from Earth and the sky is dark, was understood in numerous cultures as the moon descending into an underworld. Not moving behind the sun, descending into the realm of the dead. The Mesopotamian moon god Nana, one of the most important deities in the Sumerian and Babylonian pantheon, was believed to spend the 3 days of the new moon in the underworld, presiding over the dead, before ascending again into the night sky as the thin crescent of the waxing moon. 3 days underground, 3 days in the land of the dead, and then a resurrection, visible as a silver thread on the western horizon at dusk. The moon's monthly disappearance, understood as death. Its return understood as resurrection, happening overhead every month, for all of human history. The moon descending into the underworld, 3 days with the dead, and then the thin silver crescent on the western horizon. The return. People watching that crescent in Mesopotamia 4,000 years ago, the way you might watch for a light in a window, relieved to see it every time. Fact 5. The Chinese mythological tradition has one of the most elaborately developed relationships with the moon of any culture in the world. The goddess Chang'e, whose name is now attached to China's lunar exploration program, the spacecraft that have orbited and landed on the actual moon, lives on the moon alone, in a palace of cold jade, the result of a mythological transgression that varies in its details across different versions of the story. In the most common version, Chang'e's husband Ho-I was a divine archer who shot down 9 of the original 10 suns to prevent the earth from burning. As a reward, he was given a pill of immortality. Chang'e swallowed it, accidentally or deliberately depending on the version, and floated upward unable to stop herself until she reached the moon, where she has been ever since, alone, except for a jade rabbit who lives with her, eternally grinding herbs with a mortar and pestle, and a woodcutter who chops perpetually at a acacia tree that immediately heals, so he can never finish the task. The Moon Palace, in Chinese mythology, is a place of cold beauty and extraordinary isolation, a paradise that is also, in some essential way, a prison. Fact 6. The jade rabbit of Chinese myth is one of the most widely distributed lunar images in East Asian culture. Look at the full moon on a clear night. The dark patches, the Maria, the ancient lava plains that give the near side of the moon its distinctive pattern, can be read as the shape of a rabbit. Not by everyone. The same dark patterns that East Asian cultures read as a rabbit, European cultures historically read as a man's face, which is why we say, the man in the moon. The same visual information. 2 entirely different stories. The rabbit and the man, looking at each other across the full moon's face. Each one invisible to people trained to see the other. In Japan, the lunar rabbit, Tsuki no Usagi, is said to be making mochi, pounding rice cakes. In Korea, the same rabbit is grinding herbal medicine. The rabbit is doing different work in every culture that sees it, but all of them see a rabbit on the same face of the moon. Fact 7. The far side of the moon, the true dark side, the hemisphere that faces permanently away, appears in almost no ancient mythology. Not because people didn't think about it, because it was too far beyond the edge of the knowable to attach a story to. What the mythologies of the world focused on instead was the moon's behavior from the perspective of Earth. Its phases, its relationship to the tides, its apparent journey through the sky, its disappearances and returns. The dark side was not a mythological location. It was a mythological absence. The blank that all the stories ran up against and stopped. In some traditions, the far side of the moon was simply where the moon's light went when it was not visible, stored somehow in a place beyond reach. In others, it was simply never addressed. The edge of the map, beyond which no story had yet been told. Fact 8. The first human beings to see the far side of the moon were the crew of Apollo 8 in December 1968. They were the first humans to travel beyond the protective bubble of the Earth's magnetic field. The first to see the Earth as a whole, rising over the lunar horizon, a small, blue, extraordinarily fragile-looking sphere, hung in black space. and the first to see with their own eyes the hemisphere that had been the blank space in every map, the unnamed face behind every moon goddess, the place that myth could not reach. Astronaut William Anders described looking at the far side as looking at a sandpile my kids have been playing in for a long time. It's all beat up, no definition, just a lot of bumps and holes. The reality of the far side was, in one sense, anticlimactic. It was rock. Cratered, battered, ancient rock. No jade palace. No rabbit. No gateway to the underworld. Just the universe doing what it does, patiently, without any awareness of the stories that had been told about it, for thousands of years, from very far away. The universe doing what it does, without any awareness of the stories. And yet the stories are extraordinary. Chang'e in her jade palace, the rabbit making mochi, Nana visiting the dead, the lunatic tied to the cycle, the face no one could see, the blank in the map, the place where all the stories ran out. You are not on the dark side of anything tonight. You are on the near side, the warm side, the face that is turned toward the light, even when the light is dark, even when the sky is this dark. The moon is up there right now, showing you, as always, the same face it has shown every human being who has ever looked up at it. The same face, unchanged, patient as the tidal locking that turned it, billions of years ago, and held it, ever since, for you. Tonight, sleep. Every month the moon dies, not metaphorically, in the understanding of virtually every ancient culture that watched the sky with sufficient attention. The moon genuinely, literally died. The waning moon was a dying thing. The 3 dark nights of the new moon were its death. And the crescent that appeared on the western horizon at dusk, thin as a fingernail clipping, silver against the darkening blue, that was a resurrection, happening overhead, every single month, on schedule, without fail. This is perhaps the most important thing the moon gave to ancient human beings. Not just light, not just the measurement of time, but proof. Repeated, observable, reliable proof that death was not the end. That whatever went into the dark came back out of it. Changed in brightness but fundamentally continuous. The same moon, reassembled from its own disappearance. The moon was the first resurrection story. And every culture that looked at it eventually told a version of the same tale. Fact 9. The Mesopotamian moon god Sin, also known as Nana in Sumerian tradition, was not merely powerful. He was, in the Sumerian understanding, the source of all divine light. The sun god Shamash and the evening star Ishtar were both considered his children. The father of light, who himself descended into darkness every month. Sin's symbol was the crescent moon, and his sacred number was 30, the length, approximately, of the lunar month. His temples were oriented to catch moonlight. His priests maintained the lunar calendar by which all agricultural, legal, and religious life was organized. And in the myth of Nana's journey to Nippur, one of the oldest narrative texts ever recovered, Sin/Nana travels by boat through the sky, down through the netherworld, and returns. A boat journey through the underworld, ending in return, ending in light. The oldest resurrection story in the world may be the monthly passage of the moon god through the kingdom of the dead. Fact 10. The ancient Egyptians had not one moon deity but several, reflecting the different qualities they perceived in the moon's changing face. Thoth, the god of writing, knowledge, and measurement, was associated with the moon partly because the lunar calendar was used to measure time, and timekeeping was Thoth's domain. But the Egyptian moon god most directly tied to the cycle of death and resurrection was Khonsu, whose name means wanderer or traveler, depicted as a young man with a crescent and full moon headdress and a mummy's wrappings on his body. The mummy wrappings are significant. Khonsu was associated with healing, with the protection of travelers at night, and with the driving away of evil spirits. But the mummy wrappings said something else. They said, "This God knows something about death from the inside. He has been there. He wears the evidence of it, and he is still here." Fact 11. In the Norse mythological tradition, the moon is not a goddess. It is a boy. Mani, whose name simply means moon, is a male figure in the Norse cosmology, brother to Sol, the sun, both of them set in the sky by the gods to drive their respective chariots across the heavens. But the most distinctive Norse lunar myth is not about Mani himself. It is about the two children who follow him. Juki and Bill, a boy and a girl, were taken by Mani from the earth as they were drawing water from a well, still carrying their bucket and their pole. They follow the moon across the sky every night, taken from their home, still carrying their bucket. Many folklorists have argued that this ancient Norse myth is the origin of the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme. Two children, a hill, a pail of water, a fall. The nursery rhyme as a faded memory of a myth about the moon stealing children. Jack and Jill still climbing that hill, overhead, every night. Sin in his boat on the underworld river. Kansu wearing his mummy wrappings. Juki and Bill still carrying their bucket across the sky. Every culture looking at the same monthly event and finding in it the same essential story. Something went away. Something came back. The going and the coming are connected. The dark is not the end. Let that be the last thought before you let the thoughts go. The dark is not the end. Fact 12. The Mesoamerican lunar traditions are among the most complex and, in some ways, the most unnerving in the world. The Aztec moon deity Tecusistecatl was not a gentle, cycling god of resurrection. He was, in the origin myth of the current world, a coward. The Aztec creation myth tells that at the beginning of the current age, the gods gathered at the sacred city of Teotihuacan to throw themselves into a great fire and become the heavenly bodies. Two gods were chosen to become the sun and moon. The first, Nanahuatzin, the humble, poor, and sickly god, leaped into the fire without hesitation and became the sun. The second, Tecusistecatl, who was proud, wealthy, and decorated in splendid offerings, flinched 4 times before finally leaping, and became the moon, the dimmer light, the hesitant fire, the coward's consolation prize. And because his light was still too bright at first, because both sun and moon shone with equal brilliance in the beginning, one of the other gods struck Tecusistecatl across the face with a rabbit, dimming him. This is why the moon is dimmer than the sun. And this is why, if you look at the full moon, you see the shape of a rabbit on its face. The rabbit is still there, the mark of the diminishing. Fact 13. The Aztec goddess most associated with the moon's darker qualities was Coyolxauhqui, Golden Bells, whose story is one of the most violent origin myths in any tradition. She was the daughter of the earth goddess Coatlicue and the sister of 400 star siblings. When Coatlicue became miraculously pregnant with the war god Huitzilopochtli, Coyolxauhqui led her 400 siblings in an assault on their mother, intending to kill her before the new god could be born and usurp their power. Huitzilopochtli was born at the moment of the attack, fully armed. He killed Coyolxauhqui, cut her into pieces, and threw her down the sacred mountain, her dismembered body tumbling to the base. She became the moon. The great carved disc of Coyolxauhqui, found in 1978 beneath the streets of Mexico City, 8 meters below the road surface, at the base of the Templo Mayor, shows her dismembered body arranged in a circle, her limbs radiating outward from her torso. The moon as a dismembered goddess. The moon's phases as the reassembly and redismemberment of a body. Every month. Fact 14. The Vedic tradition of ancient India produced some of the most elaborate lunar mythology in the world. Chandra, the Vedic moon god, also called Soma, was associated with the sacred ritual drink Soma, whose precise identity has been debated for centuries. Soma was a plant-derived drink consumed in Vedic rituals, believed to grant immortality and divine insight. And the moon was considered to be the cosmic vessel from which Soma was drunk by the gods. The waning moon, in this understanding, was the gods drinking the moon dry. The new moon, when the cup was empty. The waxing moon, when it was being refilled. The moon as a cup, being drunk by the gods. Every month. And the hidden side of the moon, the face turned away from earth, was, in some interpretations of this tradition, the face of the cup you couldn't see from where you were standing. The side the gods drank from. The side that was always turned toward heaven. Fact 15. The Celtic lunar traditions are more fragmentary than the Greek or Roman, partly because the Celts did not have a strong tradition of written mythology in the pre-Christian period. But what survives suggests a rich and somewhat unnerving relationship with the moon. The moon, in various Celtic traditions, was associated with women, with fertility, with the tides of human as well as oceanic water, with the rhythms of blood and birth and death. It was also associated with the other world, the Celtic realm of the supernatural, which was not a hell or a heaven in the Christian sense but a parallel world, sometimes beautiful, sometimes dangerous, always adjacent to the ordinary world in ways that the moon's light made perceptible. The full moon, in Celtic tradition, was a time when the boundary between the ordinary world and the other world grew thin, a threshold time, when things could move between, and the dark of the new moon was when the other world was most itself, most closed, most opaque, most firmly on the other side of whatever divided them. The dark of the moon as a locked door, the full moon as a door that swung slightly open. Fact 16. In ancient Greek mythology, the moon had a shadow self. Selene, the moon goddess proper, the light, the beauty, the face in the sky, had a counterpart in Hecate, the goddess of the dark moon, of crossroads, of magic, of the underworld's borderlands. Hecate was not the moon. She was what the moon became when it was not visible, the dark moon's goddess. She stood at crossroads, places where three roads met, which were considered thresholds between the world of the living and the world of the dead, at midnight, attended by her hounds and her torches. She was the protector of those who traveled at night, and the threat to those who traveled unwisely. The dark of the moon was her domain. The 3 nights of the new moon were her nights, and offerings were left at crossroads for Hecate. Food, small statues, burning torches, not in temples but in the open, at the liminal places, during the moon's monthly absence. Because when the moon was gone, Hecate was there instead, holding the dark, in place of the light. Fact 17. The moon's relationship to death is not merely mythological. In many practical, pre-modern cultures, the phases of the moon governed when the dead were buried, when mourning rituals were conducted, and how long grief was expected to last. In ancient Rome, burials were typically not conducted during the first 3 days after death, a period corresponding to and possibly derived from the 3 dark days of the new moon, the liminal period of the moon's underworld sojourn. In various African traditions, the period of official mourning was measured in lunar cycles. Grief had a lunar dimension, a time of waxing and waning, an end that was marked by the return of the moon to a specific phase. The moon as a grief clock, as a frame for loss, as evidence that what disappears does not disappear forever. The moon goes dark. The moon comes back. The mourning has an end. The cycle continues. Hecate at the crossroads. The gods, drinking the moon dry. Koilzakwi, becoming the moon from pieces. The grief clock, ticking in lunar time. Every tradition finding in the same sky the same essential comfort. What goes away comes back. What gets dark gets light again. What seems finished is only between phases. You are between phases right now. between the waking and whatever the morning brings. In the in-between, the new moon of the night, which is also in every tradition that has ever watched the sky, the beginning of the return. Sleep into it. The crescent is already on its way. The moon holds the dead. Not in every tradition, not in every culture, but in enough of them spread across enough continents, across enough centuries, that the pattern deserves to be named. The moon is where you go when you leave here, sometimes permanently, sometimes temporarily, a way station on the journey to somewhere further. Sometimes the moon itself is the afterlife, a cold and beautiful and enormously distant place where the souls of the dead look down at the earth they have left, growing dimmer as the moon waxes and waning again as the moon wanes, part of the same great cycle. And the dark side, the face always turned away, is in the traditions that imagine the moon as a place of the dead, the most private part of that place, the part you cannot see from here, where the dead, perhaps, go when they do not wish to be seen, or when they are deepest into whatever comes next. Fact 18. In the traditions of several West African peoples, including the Akan of Ghana and the Ivory Coast, the moon is the dwelling place of the ancestors. Not a metaphorical dwelling, a literal one. The dead are believed to reside on or in the moon, from where they continue to observe the living, to influence events, to respond to offerings and invocations made during the night hours when the moon is visible. The full moon is the time when the ancestors are most present and most accessible. Their home fully illuminated, their influence strongest. The new moon is a period of withdrawal. The ancestors pulled back into the dark of the moon, less accessible, less observant. This is not understood as abandonment. It is understood as rest. The ancestors, too, need their dark time. Their 3 days of stillness and withdrawal, after which they return, present again, watchful, the crescent emerging as their first sign of renewed attention. Fact 19. The ancient Greek philosopher Plutarch, writing in the late 1st and early 2nd centuries AD, dedicated an entire essay to the question of what lives on the moon. The essay is called De Facie Quae in Orb Lunia Paret, on the face that appears in the orb of the moon. It is an extraordinary document. In it, Plutarch combines genuine astronomical observation with mythological speculation and a kind of proto-scientific reasoning to argue that the moon is a physical place, not merely a light, with its own geography, its own qualities, and its own inhabitants. Those inhabitants, in Plutarch's account, are the souls of the recently dead. He describes the moon as an intermediate zone, a place between the earth and the pure heavens above, where souls undergo a process of purification before moving on to whatever lies further out. The visible face of the moon as a purgatory, a transit zone for the dead, and the far face, the face no one could see, as the entrance to something beyond, the threshold between the moon's intermediate realm and whatever lay in the deeper sky. Plutarch wrote this approximately 50 years before Ptolemy mapped the visible lunar surface, and nearly 2,000 years before anyone saw the far side. Fact 20. The Polynesian traditions contain some of the most elaborate lunar mythologies in the world, partly because the cultures of the Pacific, navigators who crossed thousands of kilometers of open ocean using stars and swells and the behavior of birds, developed an exceptionally sophisticated relationship with celestial bodies out of practical necessity. In the Hawaiian tradition, the moon god Mahina was responsible for planting. The Hawaiian lunar calendar was used to determine the best times for cultivating specific crops, based on the phase of the moon and its position relative to the stars. But Mahina had another quality that most agricultural moon gods do not. He was defeated. The demigod Maui, the same Maui who fished up the Hawaiian Islands and lassoed the sun to make the days longer, also captured the moon. He caught Mahina in a snare and held him, demanding that the moon move more slowly across the sky so that the nights would be longer and more useful to fishermen and travelers. Mahina agreed and was released. but the moon's pride was wounded. And some traditions say that the moon's monthly waning, its shrinking from full to dark, is Mahina retreating in wounded dignity, pulling himself away, growing smaller in his embarrassment, until he remembers eventually that he is the moon, and comes back. Mahina caught in Maui's snare, the ancestors resting in their dark time, Plutarch's purifying souls in transit on the lunar surface. All of them, the mythological dead, the fishing god, the luminous purgatory, residing in the same 384,000 kilometers of space. That is the moon tonight, full of everything everyone has ever imagined putting there, full of all the ancestors, full of Plutarch's intermediate souls, full of a fishing god who was once caught in a snare and came back. Fact 21. In the ancient Vedic texts of India, the moon was believed to be the dwelling place of the Pitars, the ancestral dead, the fathers. The Pitars were not forgotten or inactive in death. They continued to exist in a form appropriate to the lunar realm, sustained by the offerings made by their living descendants during the new moon rituals called Shraddha. The Shraddha ceremonies, still practiced in some form today across Hindu traditions, involve making offerings of food and water during the new moon period, specifically directing those offerings to the ancestral dead on the moon. The logic is elegant. The new moon is when the moon is closest to the sun. Astronomically speaking, it occupies roughly the same region of sky as the sun, invisible because it is lost in solar glare. The Vedic tradition understood this proximity to the sun as the Pitars passing through the fire of the sun, being purified, before descending again as rain, the rain that grows the crops that feed the living descendants who make the offerings that sustain the Pitars. The dead, feeding the living, through the rain that comes from the moon, by way of the sun. An entire cosmological cycle built around the monthly phases of a rock in space. Fact 22. The Islamic lunar tradition is one of the most practically significant religious relationships with the moon in the world. The Islamic calendar is a purely lunar calendar. 12 months of 29 or 30 days each, adding up to a year of approximately 354 days, which means that Islamic dates cycle through all the seasons over a period of about 33 solar years. Ramadan, the month of fasting, falls in every season over this 33-year cycle. A Muslim alive for a full generation will have experienced Ramadan in summer and winter, in the cool of spring and the heat of autumn, cycling through the full range of human experience. The crescent moon begins each month. The crescent moon ends each month by announcing the next. The crescent, in Islamic tradition, is not merely a symbol. It is an active presence, the announcer of sacred time. In many traditional communities, Ramadan does not begin until the new crescent has been physically sighted in the sky, a human eye confirming the birth of the month. The crescent that means the month is beginning. Still watched for, still confirmed by sight, as it has been for 14 centuries. Fact 23. The indigenous traditions of North America contain a remarkable diversity of lunar mythology, reflecting the enormous cultural and linguistic diversity of the peoples of the continent. But one pattern recurs with enough frequency to notice. In many North American traditions, the moon is female. Not universally. There are traditions where the moon is male or where gender is not a relevant category for a celestial body. But the female moon is widespread, particularly in traditions from the Great Plains, the Northeast, the Southeast, and the Pacific Northwest. The Algonquin grandmother moon, Nokomis Debiki Gitsis in Ojibwe, is one of the most important spiritual beings in Anishinaabe tradition, associated with water, with the tides of the Great Lakes, with women's cycles, with the management of night, and with the overall health of the natural world. Grandmother Moon is not merely a mythological figure. She is a teacher. Her phases are lessons. Full moon. Come together, reflect, be visible. Waning. Release what is no longer needed. Dark moon, rest. Turn inward. Restore. Waxing. Intention. Growth. Building. Curriculum in the sky. Taught every month. By a grandmother. Fact 24. The idea that the moon rings like a bell when struck is one of the strangest and most persistent myths in modern lunar pseudoscience. It originates from an actual scientific observation. During the Apollo 12 mission in 1969, when the ascent stage of the lunar module was deliberately crashed into the moon's surface after the astronauts had returned to the command module, seismometers left on the surface recorded the impact, and the moon rang. Not metaphorically. The seismometers recorded vibrations that continued for approximately an hour, much longer than the same impact on Earth would have produced vibrations. Scientists explain this as the result of the lunar crust being extremely dry and rigid, producing long-duration, reverberant seismic waves that bounce through the rock for far longer than they would in the water-saturated rock of Earth. This is thoroughly understood physics, but the image, the moon ringing like a bell, was too good for the mythological imagination to leave alone. The claim emerged and persists that this proves the moon is hollow, which it does not. But the image of a hollow moon, a shell, a constructed thing, a vessel with a dark interior, has a mythological resonance so deep that the scientific explanation has never fully satisfied the part of the mind that wants the moon to be hiding something. Fact 25. In the Shinto tradition of Japan, the moon deity is Tsukuyama no Mikoto, lord of the moon counter, brother to the sun goddess Amaterasu. The story of how they came to occupy different parts of the sky is one of the most important myths in the Shinto tradition. At a feast given by the food goddess Yukamochi, Tsukuyami watched as Yukamochi produced food by vomiting, defecating, and blowing it from her nose. He was so disgusted that he killed her. Amaterasu was furious at her brother's action. She declared she never wished to see him again. And so the sun and the moon, previously occupying the same sky, separated. Amaterasu took the day. Tsukuyami took the night, and they have not shared a sky since. This is why the sun and the moon are almost never in the sky at the same time. The divine sibling estrangement, made permanent, in the sky above Japan, every day, for as long as anyone can remember. Fact 26. The moon's relationship to water is almost universal in world mythology, and it reflects something genuinely physical. The moon's gravitational pull generates the tides, the twice-daily rise and fall of the oceans that governs the lives of everything that lives at the water's edge. Every coastal people on Earth observed this relationship, and from the observation of water responding to the moon, a broader principle was inferred. If the moon moves the sea, it moves all water. If it moves all water, it moves the water in the soil, and thus affects the growth of plants. If it moves the water in the soil, it might move the water in the body. And if it moves the water in the body, the blood, the lymph, the cerebrospinal fluid, the moisture in the brain, then perhaps it also moves the mind. The connection between the moon and madness, which we noted at the beginning of our journey, travels through water. Through the logic of a gravitational body that demonstrably moves the largest body of water on Earth, extended by a perfectly reasonable ancient inference to everything that is mostly water, including us. The moon, pulling the water in the sea, the water in the soil, the water in us. Tsukuyami, alone in his half of the sky, grandmother moon, teaching her curriculum. The pitchers, coming back as rain. Plutarch's souls, in transit on the lunar surface. Everything the moon holds, everything it pulls toward itself, including you. Right now, the water in you knows the moon is up there, knows it the way the tide knows it, without being told, without thinking about it. The oldest conversation between the moon and the water. The moon is speaking. The water in you is listening. let that listening be the last thing, and let the rest go. Sleep. The full moon changes things. Or so every culture in the world has at some point believed. The light is different. The shadows are different. The world at full moon has a quality, something between silver and blue, something that makes familiar landscapes look like illustrations of themselves rather than the real things, that has always seemed to the human mind like evidence. Evidence that something is happening, that the rules are slightly different tonight, that the line between what is ordinary and what is not has shifted, just slightly in the direction of not. Every culture that noticed this quality of full moonlight eventually built a story around it. And the stories almost always involve transformation. Things becoming other things. People becoming animals. The self becoming something the self does not normally permit itself to be. The full moon, as mythology understands it, is the great license. The night when the ordinary rules take a brief and supervised holiday. Fact 27. The werewolf is one of the most widespread mythological figures in European tradition. The idea of a human being who transforms into a wolf, or some wolf-like creature, under the influence of the full moon appears in ancient Greek texts, in Roman literature, in Norse sagas, in medieval European folklore, and in the oral traditions of cultures across the continent. The word werewolf comes from Old English wer, meaning man, combined with wolf, meaning wolf. Man-wolf. The transformation is almost always involuntary in the older traditions. Not a power sought and wielded, but a curse, an affliction, something that happens to a person against their will. The Greek myth of Lycaon, the king of Arcadia who served Zeus the flesh of a slaughtered child and was transformed into a wolf as divine punishment, is among the earliest written accounts. The word lycanthropy, the clinical term for the delusion that one has transformed into a wolf, comes directly from Lycaon's name, the king who served the wrong meal, still giving his name to something. Fact 28. The connection between werewolves and the full moon specifically, rather than werewolves in general, is more recent than most people assume. In the oldest werewolf traditions, the transformation was not necessarily tied to the lunar cycle. It could be triggered by putting on a wolf skin, by drinking water from a wolf's paw print, by being bitten by another werewolf, by a witch's curse. The full moon as the specific trigger for transformation entered popular culture primarily through early 20th century horror fiction and, more lastingly, through Hollywood cinema. The 1941 film The Wolfman is largely responsible for cementing the full moon as the definitive werewolf trigger in modern consciousness. But the association is not entirely invented. It draws on the ancient and universal belief in the full moon's transformative power. The idea that the full moon changes things, that it licenses behaviors and states not normally permissible. The full moon as transformer has always been there. The wolf as the specific transformation is older than the connection between them. Hollywood married them, and they have been inseparable ever since. Fact 29. The ancient Canaanite moon god Yerek was one of the most important deities in the pantheon of ancient Ugarit, a city-state on the coast of what is now Syria, which flourished approximately from 1400 to 1200 BC. Yerek means moon in the Semitic languages of the region, and he was a deity of considerable tenderness by the standards of ancient Near Eastern gods. His most important myth involves his courtship of Nikkel, the goddess of orchards, a wooing so persistent and so earnest that Yerek essentially negotiated a bride price with Nikkel's father and paid it in full. He is described as the lamp of heaven, the light that makes the night navigable, and as the Lord of the sickle, a reference both to the crescent moon's resemblance to a sickle and to the agricultural calendar that the lunar month governed. What is notable about Yerek in the context of this series is how gentle he is. In a pantheon that included storm gods of considerable violence, Yerek simply lit the night. He illuminated. He made the nocturnal world accessible to those who moved through it. a moon god whose primary attribute was making the dark navigable. Yerik lighting the night, the wolfman transforming at the full moon. Lycaon still giving his name to madness. The full moon, the great license. The night when the ordinary rules shift, just slightly, in the direction of not ordinary. You are in the dark right now, but not the transforming dark. The settled dark. The dark that keeps things as they are. The new moon's dark. The ancestors' rest. The still kind. Fact 30. The Maori of New Zealand have a lunar tradition of considerable complexity and beauty. The moon, in Maori mythology, is the deity Marama, also sometimes called Maui Tikitikia Taranga, connecting the moon to the great demigod cycle. But the most distinctive Maori lunar myth involves the origin of the moon's phases. The moon is understood to have two wives. Rona is the wife of the waxing phase, the growing, brightening, increasingly present moon. But there is also a second wife, Hain-Te-Iwaiwa, associated with the full moon and with childbirth, fertility, and the weaving of flax, the crafts of women. When the moon wanes, in this tradition, it is because Rona has been neglected, or because the moon god is absent and Rona is losing her connection to him. Rona herself has a separate myth. She was snatched by the moon one night when she cursed it for not providing enough light, and is still trapped on the lunar surface. Visible, in Maori tradition, as the figure carrying a water gourd that can be seen in the full moon's face. A woman, taken by the moon, still carrying her water, looking down. Fact 31. The ancient Arabian Peninsula, before the rise of Islam, was home to a rich and sophisticated lunar cult. The moon god of pre-Islamic Arabia, variously called Sin, Wad, or other names depending on the regional tradition, was the supreme deity in much of the Arabian religious world, more important than the sun goddess. This is the inverse of what we might expect from a desert culture, where the sun dominates the physical experience of existence. But for desert traders and nomads, the night, and the cooler temperatures it brought, the navigation by stars it allowed, the full moon that lit the way for caravan travel, was more friendly, more useful, more life-giving than the killing daytime heat. The moon was more important than the sun because the night was more livable than the day. Shrines to the moon god were found across the Arabian Peninsula. The crescent and the star, symbols deeply associated with Islamic tradition, were, before Islam, symbols of the pre-Islamic lunar cult. The crescent carried its older meaning forward into a new context, as symbols often do. Fact 32. In the Buddhist tradition, the moon holds a specific and important role as a symbol of enlightenment. The full moon is the night on which the most important events in the Buddha's life are said to have occurred. His birth, his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, and his death, called the Parinirvana. Vesak, the Buddhist festival that commemorates all three events simultaneously, is celebrated on the full moon of the fourth or fifth lunar month. The moon in this context is not a deity. It is a mirror, the reflection of the sun's light, a light that the moon does not generate itself but receives and gives back, became a symbol of the enlightened mind, which does not generate its own illumination but receives and reflects the light of reality. A mind like the moon, receiving and reflecting, neither grasping nor refusing, just receiving what comes, and giving it back, as light. Fact 33. The Scottish and Irish traditions contain a figure called the Man in the Moon, whose story is somewhat different from the Norse version of Juki and Bill. In the Scottish tradition, the Man in the Moon is a figure condemned to carry a bundle of thorn bushes for all eternity, punished for some infraction committed on earth by being removed from it and set to work in the sky. What his infraction was varies across different tellings. In some versions, he gathered sticks on the Sabbath, which was forbidden. In others, he stole his neighbor's hedge. In still others, the offense is left deliberately vague. He did something wrong, and the moon took him. The Man in the Moon as a cautionary figure. A punishment made permanent and made visible, hanging over every night sky, the consequences of a specific human failure made cosmic and eternal. But there is something else in the Scottish tradition, something more tender. Because the man in the moon, in some versions, is not being punished. He was simply taken. The way the Norse moon took Juki and Bill. The moon, reaching down and taking someone it wanted. Not to punish, to keep. Fact 34. The fear of being taken by the moon appears in many traditions as a specific category of supernatural abduction. Not taken by a ghost, not taken by a witch, not taken by a demon from below, taken by the moon. From above, into the sky, into whatever lives there. In European folklore, sleeping in moonlight, particularly the direct, unfiltered light of the full moon falling on a sleeping face, was considered dangerous. Not metaphorically dangerous, literally dangerous. A person who slept in moonlight risked moon blindness, or madness, or being drawn upward in their sleep toward the thing that was looking down at them. The moon watching you sleep, and occasionally deciding to keep what it watched. This is why, in many traditional households, windows were covered on full moon nights. Not to keep out the dark, to keep out the light. That specific silver light. That watched. Fact 35. The connection between the moon and sleep is so deep and so universal that it may actually have a physiological basis. Modern research has found that human sleep quality, specifically the time spent in deep restorative slow-wave sleep, is measurably lower in the days around the full moon. Not because people are kept awake by the moonlight, which cannot explain the effect in participants sleeping in controlled, light-controlled laboratory conditions, but because something in the body's internal rhythms responds to the lunar cycle in a way that we do not yet fully understand. The effect is small, approximately 20 minutes less deep sleep per night in the days around the full moon. 20 minutes. Not enough to be devastating, but enough to be measured. The body knows the moon is full, even in the dark of a sleep laboratory, even with no window, even with no light reaching it at all. The body knows. The body knows. In the sealed laboratory, in the light-controlled room, the body knows. The moon in the moon is still watching. The moon watching you sleep. And occasionally, in the old traditions, deciding to keep what it watched. But not tonight. Tonight the moon is simply there, doing what it does, moving through its arc, reflecting the sun's light, back to earth, like a mind that receives and gives back without grasping, like the Buddhist mirror, like the Buddhist moon, just receiving, just giving back, just light, falling on a sleeping face, on every sleeping face, everywhere on earth, including yours. Right now, the moon is not taking you anywhere. It is simply watching, with the patient, ancient attention of something that has been watching for 4 billion years. Sleep. For most of human history, the boundary between mythology and science did not exist. The people who watched the moon most carefully, who tracked its phases with obsessive precision, who could predict eclipses centuries in advance, who built their temples and their calendars and their entire understanding of time around its movements, were not doing science in the modern sense. They were doing something that was simultaneously science and religion and philosophy and mythology. They were doing all of it at once, because it had not yet occurred to anyone that these were separate activities. The astronomer and the astrologer were the same person. The physicist and the alchemist shared a laboratory. The mathematician who calculated the moon's orbit also calculated what the moon meant for human fate. And in that world, where the same mind held the measurement and the meaning together, the moon accumulated both kinds of knowledge simultaneously. The precise and the mythological, side by side, in the same notebooks, in the same heads. Fact 36. Alchemy. The forerunner of chemistry, the tradition that sought to transform base metals into gold, to find the elixir of life, to understand the fundamental nature of matter, organized itself around a system of correspondences between earthly substances and celestial bodies. Each planet corresponded to a metal. The sun corresponded to gold, and the moon corresponded to silver. Not arbitrarily. Silver is white. It reflects light. It is associated with the night. Its behavior under fire is different from other metals in ways that seemed, to the alchemical eye, to mirror the moon's relationship to its own light, not generating illumination but reflecting it, not the source but the mirror. The alchemical symbol for silver is the crescent moon. The alchemical term for silver was luna, and the process of silvering, of applying silver to a surface, was called luning. The moon's symbol, pressed into chemistry, still there, in the periodic table's history, in the etymology of chemical processes. The moon present in the language of science, from before science and myth were separated. Fact 37. The ancient Babylonians were among the most sophisticated astronomical observers in the ancient world. Their records of lunar movements, cuneiform tablets containing the precise positions of the moon against the star background, night after night, for centuries, allowed them to develop predictive models of extraordinary accuracy. The Saros cycle, the period of approximately 18 years, 11 days, after which eclipses repeat in the same pattern, was identified by Babylonian astronomers. It allowed them to predict lunar eclipses centuries in advance. Not through physics, not through understanding the geometry of the solar system, but through pure pattern recognition, by observing the cycle repeat enough times to understand its period. A lunar eclipse, in Babylonian tradition, was deeply ominous, understood as an attack on the moon god's sin by cosmic enemies. So when a lunar eclipse was predicted, the Babylonian response was practical. They substituted a king. A commoner was temporarily installed as king, dressed in royal robes, given royal treatment, allowed to enjoy the position for the duration of the eclipse. The real king went into hiding, the idea being that whatever cosmic attack was aimed at the king would find the substitute instead, and the real king would survive. The substitute, after the eclipse, was typically executed, just to be safe. Fact 38. The Greek mathematician and astronomer Aristarchus of Samos, writing in the 3rd century BC, made the first known attempt to calculate the size and distance of the moon. His method was elegant. By measuring the angle between the moon and the sun at the moment when exactly half the moon was illuminated, the quarter moon, he could calculate the ratio of the Earth-Moon distance to the Earth-Sun distance. His instruments were crude. His measurements were imprecise. But his method was correct, and his estimate of the Earth-Moon distance, while off by a significant margin due to the limitations of naked eye measurement, was of the right order of magnitude. What is remarkable is not the numbers. It is the attempt. 2,300 years ago, a man looked at the half-lit moon and reasoned his way toward its distance. Using geometry, using nothing but his eyes, a set of angle measurements, and a mind prepared to treat the moon as a physical object at a measurable distance, rather than as a goddess, or a god, or a boat, or a cup of soma, just an object, at a distance that can be calculated. The alchemist, silvering the mirror. The Babylonian king, hiding during the eclipse. The substitute king, briefly royal. Aristarchus, measuring the angle of the half-lit moon. All of them looking at the same object, in the same sky, finding entirely different things, and all of them right in their own ways, about something. Fact 39. Isaac Newton's theory of universal gravitation was, by the famous account, inspired by watching an apple fall. Whether the apple actually fell, whether the story is literally true, has been debated. What is not debated is the intellectual move Newton made. He asked, what if the force that pulls the apple toward the Earth is the same force that holds the moon in its orbit? What if gravity is not a local phenomenon, not something that only operates between the Earth and things on its surface, but a universal force operating across all space, governing everything from falling fruit to the motion of the heavens? The moon was central to this reasoning. Newton used the moon's orbital motion to check his calculations of gravitational force at a distance. If gravity falls off with the square of the distance, if the force at the moon's distance is the square of the distance weaker than at Earth's surface, then the moon's orbital speed should be exactly what it is. It was. The moon confirmed Newton's physics. A mythological object, worshipped, feared, named, given houses of the dead and jade palaces and rabbit companions, turned out to also be the thing that validated the theory of universal gravitation. Mythology and physics, inhabiting the same object, at the same time. Fact 40. Medieval European alchemy and folk magic assign the moon a particularly active role in the timing of practical operations. Not just what the moon meant, but when to act on its meaning. The waxing moon, the growing moon from new to full, was the time for operations of increase, planting crops that grew above the ground, starting new ventures, attracting things toward you. The waning moon, the shrinking moon from full to new, was the time for operations of decrease, pulling up root crops, ending things, letting go. The full moon was the peak of power. The new moon was the moment of new beginnings. This system, the lunar calendar as a practical guide to timing, persisted not only in explicit magical practice but in farming traditions across Europe. The Farmer's Almanac, still published today, includes lunar gardening recommendations. The medieval witch and the modern gardener, following the same calendar, for different reasons, or perhaps at some level for the same one. Fact 41. The moon in Taoist philosophy is one of the clearest expressions of the Yin principle. Yin, the receptive, the dark, the feminine, the moon, is not, in Taoist understanding, the opposite of yang in a combative sense. It is the complement. The two cannot exist without each other. The moon cannot be seen without the sun's light. The sun's light is only visible at night because the moon reflects it. Neither one is primary. Neither one is secondary. Both are necessary. The full moon, the moment of maximum yin, is the moment when the interplay between the two principles is most visibly balanced. The moon's light reaching the earth as borrowed brightness. Yang passing through yin and becoming something the eye can rest in. The sun's fire, cooled by the moon's reflection, made gentle enough to sleep by. Fact 42. The concept of the dark moon, as distinct from the new moon, has become significant in contemporary neo-pagan and Wiccan traditions. The new moon is the first visible sliver of the waxing crescent. The dark moon is the 3 days before that, the period of complete lunar invisibility, when the moon is between the earth and the sun and illuminated entirely on the side we cannot see. In contemporary practice, the dark moon is associated with deep rest, with the shadow self, with the things that cannot be seen because they are turned away, with the far side. In contemporary lunar spirituality, the dark moon has become a time of introspection, of working with what is hidden, of acknowledging the parts of the self that are always turned away from the light. The far side made personal. The face you don't show the world. The hemisphere of yourself that is always in shadow. Not negative, just the other side. The part that completes you, that you cannot see from where you are standing. Fact 43. The astronomer Galileo Galilei pointed his telescope at the moon in 1609 and changed humanity's understanding of it forever. What he saw contradicted the prevailing Aristotelian view of the heavens. The idea that celestial bodies were perfect, smooth, unchanging spheres, fundamentally different in nature from the imperfect, changing things of Earth. The moon was not smooth. It was covered in mountains and craters and valleys and dark plains. It looked, Galileo wrote, very much like the surface of the Earth. Mountains casting shadows. Craters catching light on their rims while their interiors remained dark. The moon was not a perfect sphere. It was a world. A battered, ancient, cratered world. Not so different in its basic nature from the one he was standing on. The mythology did not immediately collapse. But the first crack appeared. The first admission that the thing humanity had been staring at, worshipping, fearing, and populating with gods and rabbits and dead ancestors, was a physical place. A place you could, in principle, go to, and which would, 360 years later, be visited. Fact 44. The astronaut Neil Armstrong, standing on the moon on July 20th, 1969, described the surface as magnificent desolation. The phrase was actually Buzz Aldrin's, spoken shortly after Armstrong. Magnificent desolation. Two words that hold the entire history of lunar mythology in their tension. Magnificent. Everything that every culture had ever projected onto the moon. The beauty, the power, the divine, the palace of jade, the soma cup, the lamp of heaven, the mirror of the enlightened mind. Desolation, the absence of all of it. Rock. Vacuum. Silence so complete it would kill you without a suit between you and it. No rabbit. No goddess. No jade. No ancestor. Both true. Simultaneously. The moon is magnificent. And the moon is desolate. And the space between those two words is exactly where mythology lives. In the gap between what a thing is and what we need it to mean. Magnificent desolation. Galileo's cratered mountains. The Taoist sun cooling into moonlight. The substitute king, briefly royal. Silver, lund onto mirrors. All of it in the same object, that you might be able to see right now if you looked, or might not, depending on the phase, depending on the night. But it is there, whether visible or not, as it always is. Magnificent, desolate, patient, and very, very old. The oldest thing most human eyes have ever looked at. And still tonight, looking back, close your eyes. Let it look. It has been looking for 4 billion years. It can manage the rest of tonight. Sleep. We are halfway through. Halfway through the night and halfway through 100 facts about the moon and its hidden face. And halfway is always a good place to stop and look at where you are. Which is, in the dark, under a sky that contains the moon, wherever it is in its cycle tonight, carrying its full weight of mythology and physics and the 4 billion years of simply being there, reflecting back whatever light it receives. The moon has been doing this since before there was anyone to watch it. It will keep doing it long after the last human being who remembers the word Luna has gone. And in the middle, in the brief, extraordinary window between those two infinities, human beings looked up at it and felt things. Not just curiosity. Not just the practical need to predict eclipses and plant crops. They felt love. They felt terror. They felt the particular wordless thing that happens in the chest when you look at a full moon on a clear night and understand, without being able to explain, that you are looking at something that matters. Fact 45. The moon appears in more love poetry than any other celestial body. Not in every tradition, the sun has its devotees, but across the widest range of cultures and time periods, the moon is the romantic celestial object of choice. This is not difficult to explain. The moon appears at night. Night is when lovers meet, when the day's work stops, when the world quiets enough for feelings to become audible. Moonlight has the particular quality of making the familiar look different, the same face rendered extraordinary by silver light. And the moon changes, visibly, predictably. It is a clock for longing, a measure for absence. The waning moon says, "We have been apart for 14 days now." The full moon says, "Half the month is gone." The new crescent says, "We start again." Every culture with a tradition of love poetry has pressed the moon into service. As witness, as measure, as the thing that understands what words are too small to hold. Fact 46. The Japanese tradition of tsukimi, moon viewing, is one of the most beautiful expressions of the human relationship to the moon in any culture. Tsukimi is a practice of sitting outside in the autumn, when the air is clear and the moon is at its fullest and brightest, and simply watching the moon. Not worshipping it, not asking it for anything, not calculating its movements or interpreting its phase as an omen. Just watching. The practice dates to at least the Heian period, roughly the 9th to 12th centuries AD, when the aristocratic court of Kyoto would gather to compose poetry under the autumn moon, eat seasonal foods, and appreciate the moon's beauty as an end in itself. Tsukimi is still celebrated today, in September or October. The foods associated with it, tsukimi dango, round white rice dumplings that resemble the full moon, are still eaten. The moon is still watched, for no reason other than that watching it is worth doing. Fact 47. The eclipse, the sudden terrifying disappearance of the moon in the middle of the night, was one of the most fear-inducing phenomena in the ancient world. A lunar eclipse occurs when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon, casting its shadow across the lunar surface. The moon does not go dark. It turns red. Blood red in many cases, the color produced when the Earth's atmosphere bends and filters the sunlight reaching the eclipsed moon, stripping out the blue wavelengths and letting only the red through. Every sunrise and sunset on Earth simultaneously, projected onto the moon's surface. A blood moon. And the ancient world had no doubt about what a blood moon meant. Something was happening to the moon. Something bad. Something that needed to be stopped. Fact 48. The responses to lunar eclipses across the ancient world share a striking common structure. The moon was under attack. Not from the Earth's shadow. The geometry of the solar system was not the framework through which a blood moon was understood. The moon was being eaten, devoured, by a creature or a force or a demon, whose nature varied by culture but whose activity was unmistakable. In ancient Mesopotamia, the eclipse was an attack on sin by his enemies. In ancient China, a dragon or a celestial dog was eating the moon. In ancient India, the demon Rahu or Svarbhanu had seized the moon in his mouth. In Norse tradition, the wolves Skoll and Hati were chasing the sun and moon across the sky, and an eclipse was one of them getting close enough to take a bite. In each tradition, the correct response was the same. Make noise. As much noise as possible. Bang drums. Shout. Clash weapons. Produce the loudest possible sound, to scare off whatever was eating the moon. And in each tradition, this response worked perfectly. Every single time. The moon always came back. Fact 49. The ancient Chinese tradition around lunar eclipses is particularly well documented, because the imperial court maintained detailed astronomical records over centuries. The court astronomer's job included predicting eclipses, which, by the Tang dynasty, they could do with considerable accuracy using accumulated observational data. But predicting the eclipse and preventing the response to it were different things. Even when the astronomers knew an eclipse was coming, and knew it was a natural phenomenon, the drums would be beaten and the noise would be made. Because the noise had always worked. Because changing a practice that had never failed, in thousands of years of history, the moon had always come back after the drums, was a risk no one was willing to take. The rational and the ritual coexisting. The eclipse predicted by science. Survived by drum. The drums beating. The dragon scared away. The moon coming back. Every time. The rational astronomer. And the drum. Both right. In their own way. about what was needed. Fact 50. We have reached 50, the halfway point. And it seems right here at the middle of this journey to acknowledge something about the moon that all the myths and all the science and all the love poems and all the eclipse drums have been circling around without quite naming. The moon is the same age as the Earth. Not older, not younger, the same. The current leading theory of the moon's formation is the giant impact hypothesis. Approximately 4.5 billion years ago, a Mars-sized body, now called Theia, collided with the proto-Earth with enough force to vaporize significant portions of both bodies. The debris from that collision, rock and metal and vapor, thrown into orbit around the young Earth, eventually coalesced into the moon. The moon is, in a very literal sense, a piece of the Earth. Broken off, flung outward, caught in orbit. The Earth and the moon share an origin. They were made of the same stuff. 4.5 billion years ago, in the same catastrophic moment. The pull the moon exerts on the Earth is not a stranger's pull. It is the pull of something that belongs to the same body, still moving, in the same direction. Fact 51. The moon in Shakespeare is one of the most active celestial presences in any playwright's work. The moon appears in nearly every play, carrying different qualities in different contexts. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, the moon is the governess of romantic confusion. The play takes place under a specific moon, and the moon's presence shapes the world where the enchantments are possible. In Romeo and Juliet, Juliet tells Romeo not to swear by the moon, the inconstant moon that monthly changes in her circled orb, because she does not want their love subject to the same changeability. In Othello, the characters attribute Othello's murderous behavior to the influence of the moon. In Macbeth, the witches work their spells under specific lunar conditions. Shakespeare did not need to explain why the moon mattered. His audience already knew. They had lived their whole lives under a moon that mattered. Fact 52. The ancient Greek myth of Selene and Endymion is one of the most beautiful and most melancholy lunar love stories in any tradition. Endymion was a shepherd, or a hunter, or a king, the versions vary, of extraordinary beauty. Selene, the moon goddess, fell in love with him, and the love she felt was deep enough that she could not bear the thought of him aging, declining, dying, as all humans must. So she put him to sleep. An eternal sleep, in a cave on Mount Latmos. She visits him there still. Every night, as she passes across the sky, she descends briefly to the cave, to look at him, unchanged, sleeping, perfectly preserved. The most beloved thing kept perfectly safe by being kept perfectly still. The myth that turned love into sleep, and sleep into a kind of eternity. Fact 53. The far side of the moon, the face that no human eye has ever seen from Earth, is not, as it turns out, the dark side. This is perhaps the most fundamental correction in this entire series. The far side is not perpetually dark. It receives just as much sunlight as the near side. It simply receives it when the near side is in the moon's night, and vice versa. During the new moon, when the near side faces away from the sun and appears dark to us, the far side is fully illuminated. During the full moon, when we see the near side fully lit, the far side is in lunar night. The dark side of the moon is a misnomer. A beautiful, evocative, mythologically rich misnomer. The far side is not darker than the near side. It is simply the side that turns away from us. The side that faces out toward the rest of the solar system, toward Jupiter, toward Saturn, toward the outer planets and the edge of everything. The face that looks outward, while the near side looks at us. Endymion, sleeping in his cave. Selene, descending every night to look at him. The far side, looking out toward Jupiter. And the near side, looking at you. Right now, the same face that has been looking at the Earth. for 4.5 billion years, unchanged. In its basic expression, looking, the most beloved thing, kept perfectly still, in the eternal sleep that Selene gave Endymion. You don't need that kind of eternity, but you do need tonight, and tonight is here, and the moon is looking, with its ancient, patient 4-billion-year attention, at you, and you can look back, or not. Either way, it will still be there, in the morning, as it always is. Sleep. Every significant celestial body in the ancient world eventually got a temple. Not a poem, not a myth, not simply a name. A building, a physical structure, oriented with precision toward the object it honored, built with sufficient grandeur to communicate, to the gods, to other cities, to future generations, that this thing in the sky was important enough to deserve stone. The sun got temples. The planets got temples. And the moon, the most watched, the most mythologized, the most practically significant of all the celestial bodies in the pre-industrial world, got some of the most extraordinary temples ever built. Temples that aligned with moonrise, with moonset, with the most northerly and most southerly rising points the moon traces over its 18.6-year cycle of variation. Because the moon, unlike the sun, does not rise and set in the same places year to year. It wanders, within limits, beautifully, and the people who watched it long enough to understand those limits built their most important monuments to express that understanding. Fact 54. The moon's path across the sky varies over an 18.6-year cycle called the Metonic cycle, named for the Greek astronomer Meton of Athens, though the Babylonians had known it centuries before. Over this cycle, the moon's rising and setting points on the horizon shift gradually from a minimum range to a maximum range and back again. At the major lunar standstill, the extreme of the cycle, the moon rises and sets at its most northerly and most southerly points, tracing the widest arc across the sky. At the minor lunar standstill, it traces the narrowest arc, rising and setting close to the east-west line. Several Neolithic monuments appear to be oriented to the major lunar standstill rather than to the solar solstices. Callanish, the standing stone circle on the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland, is the most famous. At the major lunar standstill, which occurs once every 18.6 years, the full moon schemes low along the horizon and appears to walk along the tops of the hills surrounding the site before setting into the central avenue of the circle. The local tradition calls this the Shining One walking along the hills. The event was last visible at Callanish in 2006. The next will be in 2024 to 2025. 5,000 years of people watching the same moon walk the same hills. Fact 55. The Great Temple of Sin at Ur, the Sumerian moon god's principal sanctuary, was one of the most important religious buildings in ancient Mesopotamia. The ziggurat of Ur, built approximately 4,000 years ago by the Ur-Nammu dynasty, is one of the best preserved ancient ziggurats in the world. It was the base of a much larger temple complex dedicated entirely to Nana-Sin, the moon god. The city of Ur itself was considered the moon god's earthly home, the city over which he presided, whose calendar was lunar, whose agricultural and commercial life was organized around the monthly cycle he governed. And the temple complex at its heart was not just a place of worship. It was, functionally, an administrative center. The moon god's temple managed the largest agricultural estate in Sumer, thousands of hectares of farmland, hundreds of employees, a bureaucratic structure so sophisticated that its records, preserved in clay tablets, allowed modern economists to study the ancient Sumerian economy in remarkable detail. The moon god as landlord, the temple as a corporation, the crescent carved above the door, meaning business conducted here. Fact 56. The feminine moon is not universal. We have already met male moon gods from Mesopotamia, Japan, and the Norse tradition. But the association between the moon and the feminine, in the broadest sense, is the most widespread single characterization of the moon in world mythology. The reasons are not merely conventional. The lunar cycle and the average human menstrual cycle are both approximately 29 to 30 days. This correspondence, noticed independently by every culture that maintained any kind of calendar, produced an immediate, intuitive connection between the moon's cyclical behavior and the cyclical biology of women's bodies. The moon as the regulator, the clock whose face women's bodies read. The connection is not merely metaphorical. The biological and anthropological literature contains debate about whether the correspondence between the lunar and menstrual cycles is genuinely more than coincidence, whether there is a causal connection, whether the cycles were once more synchronized in pre-industrial conditions. The debate is not resolved, but the intuition, the felt sense in cultures around the world that the moon and the feminine body share a clock was so universal and so immediate that it would be remarkable if it had no basis at all. The Shining One, walking the hills at Callanish. The moon god, managing his agricultural estate. The feminine body, reading the moon's face. All of them finding in the same object in the sky something that belongs to them, something that is theirs, something that understands. The moon is not yours in any exclusive sense. It belongs to everyone who has ever looked at it. But it is also in this moment yours, simply because you are looking, or about to look, or lying here in the dark, under it, which is enough. Fact 57. Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt, of wild places, and of the moon in her aspect as the huntress, is one of the most complex and compelling lunar deities in any tradition. She is not the moon's light, as Selene is. She is the moon's energy, the silver bow, the arrow, the quick silver movement through dark forest, the capacity of the moon to illuminate the wild world just enough to move through it by night, but not enough to make it fully safe. The moon as the goddess of exactly enough light. The light that lets you move, but keeps the shadows. Artemis was the goddess of thresholds, of the transition between the domestic and the wild, the human and the animal, the safe and the dangerous. Her sacred places were the edge of towns, the border of forests, the beginning of wilderness. Everywhere the known world ended, and the moonlit dark began. Fact 58. Diana, the Roman equivalent of Artemis, had a famous sanctuary at Lake Nemi, in the Alban Hills south of Rome. The sanctuary was called Diana's Mirror, the lake's surface reflecting the moon so precisely that the mirror image was considered the goddess herself, looking back up at the sky. The priest of Diana at Nemi occupied his position in an extraordinary way. He had killed his predecessor, and he would eventually be killed by his successor. His title was Rex Nemorensis, the King of the Wood. He maintained his position only as long as he could defend it with a sword against any challenger. When he was finally defeated and killed, the new king took his place, until he too was defeated. An unbroken chain of ritual killing, in the moonlit woods, at the goddess's mirror. 4 centuries. James George Fraser's The Golden Bough, one of the most influential works of anthropology ever written, begins with this image. The king of the wood, sleepless, armed, endlessly watching, in the moonlit dark of the sacred grove. Fact 59. The moon's role in childbirth mythology is nearly universal. As the regulator of the biological cycle associated with fertility, the moon was widely understood as the presiding deity, or the presiding force, over conception, pregnancy, and birth. In ancient Rome, women in labor called on Lucina, the light bringer, a lunar goddess whose name shares its root with Luna, and whose assistance was invoked to bring the new life into the light. In Aztec tradition, the goddess Tlazolteotl, associated with the moon, with sexuality, with the capacity to both generate and absolve transgression, was the divine midwife, present at the moment of birth. In many Pacific Island traditions, The moon goddess was the original mother, the first being to give birth, the model for the act of bringing life out of the dark. Birth as a passage from the dark interior to the light. The new moon as the model. The new life emerging as the crescent emerges. From the darkness into the first thin light. Fact 60. The moon has been used as a metaphor for cheese since at least the 16th century, in a satirical context. The 1546 collection of French proverbs by Noël du Fail contains the earliest known version of the moon is made of green cheese expression, used not to describe what anyone believed, but to indicate gullibility. If someone told you the moon was made of green cheese and you believed them, you were a fool. Green cheese in 16th century English and French usage meant fresh, uniged cheese, not green in color, but newly made. The expression was satirical from the beginning. No one, even in 1546, thought the moon was made of cheese. But the image, the full moon as a round white wheel of cheese, was vivid enough to become the definitive example of an absurd belief. The moon made of cheese. Meaning, the most obviously ridiculous thing one could say. And yet here we are, 5 centuries later, and the phrase has outlasted everything it was meant to mock. The cheese moon. Still in the language. Still funny. Still the moon. Fact 61. The overview effect is the name given to a cognitive shift experienced by astronauts who see the Earth from space. Many Apollo astronauts have described a profound change in their understanding of humanity, of national boundaries, of the pettiness of human conflicts, upon seeing the Earth as a small blue sphere hanging in the blackness of space. Edgar Mitchell, who walked on the moon during Apollo 14, described a sudden, overwhelming sense of unity, a direct experience of the interconnectedness of all things, while looking at the stars from the command module on the return journey. He described it in terms that had more in common with mystical experience than scientific observation. He spent the rest of his life investigating the nature of consciousness, the relationship between subjective experience and the physical world. The moon, which humans had been worshipping and mythologizing for all of recorded history, turned out, when actually visited, to produce in the visitors something that felt very much like what the myths had always described. A perspective transformation, a sense of seeing the ordinary from somewhere beyond the ordinary. The thing that happens when you get far enough away. Fact 62. The Selene spacecraft, the Japanese lunar orbiter launched in 2007, was named for the Greek moon goddess. It orbited the moon for approximately 20 months, mapping the lunar surface with extraordinary precision, including the far side. Among its findings, the far side of the moon has a thicker crust than the near side, and significantly fewer of the dark Maria, the ancient lava plains that give the near side its distinctive face. The far side is more heavily cratered, more ancient looking, less geologically complex. Whatever shaped the near side, the volcanic processes that produce the dark plains, the gravitational tidal heating from the Earth's proximity, shaped it differently from the far side. The face the Earth sees and the face that looks away are genuinely different. Not just mythologically different, geologically different. The face turned toward the Earth has been changed by the Earth. The face turned away has not, which is either a geological observation or a metaphor for something, or both, as usual. The face changed by proximity. The face unchanged because it looks away. Edgar Mitchell, mystical in the command module. Diana's King of the Wood, watching in the moonlit grove. Artemis at the threshold. The crescent over the door of the moon god's agricultural estate. The Shining One, walking the hills at Callanish. All of them versions of the same conversation between a planet and its moon, still going on. Tonight, the near side changed by Earth, the far side looking outward, unchanged. Both of them the moon, both necessary, the changed face and the unchanged face. Both yours. Tonight. Sleep. On October 7, 1959, a Soviet spacecraft called Luna 3 swung around the far side of the moon and took photographs. The first photographs ever taken of the face that no human eye had ever seen. The images were blurry. The resolution was poor by any modern standard. But they were real. They showed a surface, cratered, uneven, lacking the large dark Maria of the near side. And they showed it clearly enough that Soviet scientists could begin mapping features and giving them names. The names they chose were, in retrospect, a statement. The Sea of Moscow, the Tsiolkovsky crater, the Soviet mountains. The first act of naming something previously unknown had always been an act of claiming. And here was humanity, claiming the far side of the moon. Not in myth this time, in cartography, not with a story, with a map. And yet the first photograph of the far side, blurry, gray, not particularly dramatic, could not undo 400,000 years of looking at the moon and feeling something. The mythology did not end. It simply had new information to work with. Fact 63. The Soviet space program named more features on the far side of the moon than any other national program. When Luna 3's photographs were processed and studied, Soviet astronomers were the first to assign formal names to far side features. They named a large dark plain the Sea of Moscow. They named a prominent crater after Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, the Russian theorist of spaceflight. They named a range of hills the Soviet mountains, a name that was later disallowed by the International Astronomical Union, which decided that political names were not appropriate for lunar features. The Sea of Moscow remains. Tsiolkovsky remains. The Soviet mountains do not. The far side of the moon, unnamed for all of human history, now has more than 2,000 individually named features. Craters named for scientists, mathematicians, philosophers, artists, and writers from every country and every era. Turing Crater, Leibniz Crater, Wells Crater, H.G. Wells, who wrote about traveling to the moon in 1901, now permanently on the other side of it. Fact 64. The Mesoamerican tradition around lunar eclipses was among the most elaborate and most urgent in the ancient world. In Aztec cosmology, a lunar eclipse was not merely an attack on the moon by an external force. It was a sign that the current world, the fifth sun, the current age of creation, was in danger of ending. The Aztecs believed that the world had been created and destroyed 4 times before the current age, and that each previous world had ended in a different catastrophe. The current world, the fifth sun, was prophesied to end in earthquakes, and a lunar eclipse was interpreted as a warning sign, a preview of the ending. During a lunar eclipse, the Aztec response was extreme even by the standards of eclipse responses. Pregnant women were locked inside, their faces covered with masks of maguey leaves, to prevent the eclipse from transforming their unborn children into mice. Warriors and priests made sacrifices. The noise, the prayer, the ritual were performed with desperate intensity, because this time, it might be the one that didn't end, the moon that didn't come back, the world that didn't recover. Every eclipse a possible final eclipse. Fact 65. The far side of the moon was given its most famous name not by astronomers but by a rock band. In 1973, Pink Floyd released an album called The Dark Side of the Moon. It became one of the best-selling albums in history. As of its 50th anniversary in 2023, it had spent over 900 weeks on the Billboard 200 chart. The album's themes, time, money, ambition, mental illness, and the ways ordinary life destroys the human spirit, have nothing specifically to do with the moon's hidden hemisphere. The title is a metaphor, the dark side of human experience, the parts of life that are always in shadow, the face you turn away from, But the title also changed something in the cultural understanding of the phrase. Before 1973, the dark side of the moon was primarily an astronomical concept. After 1973, it was also the sound of a synthesizer and a heartbeat and a prism breaking white light into its constituent colors. The moon's mythology, updated for the 20th century by a prism on an album cover. Luna 3, blurry and triumphant. H.G. Wells, permanently on the far side. The Aztec Mother, masked against the eclipse. Pink Floyd, breaking light into its colors. All of them the dark side of the moon. All of them the same unnamed face. Now named. Now photographed. Now on an album cover. And still somehow mysterious. The naming does not end the mystery. It just changes its shape. Fact 66. The first human beings to orbit the moon, the crew of Apollo 8 in December 1968, passed behind the far side and lost all radio contact with Earth. For approximately 45 minutes on each of their 10 orbits, they were completely cut off. No radio signal can pass through the lunar mass. No communication in either direction. Just 3 human beings in a spacecraft behind the moon, with no connection to Earth. For the first time in the history of the species, people were truly, completely, communicatively isolated, beyond the reach of any signal, any voice, any human contact. What did it feel like? Astronaut Frank Borman described it as profound quiet. Not frightening. Quiet. The far side of the moon is the most isolated place any human being has ever been. And those who have been there describe it in terms that sound less like the terror of isolation and more like the relief of it. The quiet of being somewhere no signal reaches. The stillness of a place outside the reach of everything. Fact 67. The Pink Floyd album's most famous track opens with the sound of a human heartbeat. This was a deliberate choice by the band. The heartbeat at the beginning, the heartbeat at the end. The album as one complete cycle, beginning and ending with the same biological rhythm. The human heartbeat as the underlying constant, beneath all the ambition and the money and the time and the madness. The thing that goes on, without your permission, without your effort, in the dark, while everything else is happening. Your heartbeat is doing right now what it has always done, what it did before you could think about it, what it will do until it stops, without instruction, without conscious participation, just going, in the dark, like the moon. Fact 68. The mythology of the moon as a place of dreaming is widespread in traditions that Western scholarship has sometimes neglected. In many indigenous Australian traditions, the moon is connected to the dreaming, not to sleep in the ordinary sense, but to the foundational creative order of reality, the time before linear time when the landscape and its beings were sung into existence. The moon is one of the presences in the dreaming, not a god in the Western sense, not a personality with a narrative, but a power, a luminous regularity, a presence that marks time. And in some traditions, the full moon is specifically a time when the boundary between ordinary time and dreaming time becomes thinner, when the creativity and the connectedness of the original order is more accessible. The moon as a door to the foundational reality beneath the ordinary reality being the surface, the dreaming being what the surface rests on. Fact 69. Moonstone, the gemstone, takes its name from its appearance, not its composition. Moonstone is a variety of feldspar with a distinctive optical phenomenon called agelerescence, a floating, moving, billowing glow of light that seems to come from within the stone, shifting as the stone is moved. In ancient Rome and ancient India independently, moonstone was believed to be formed from solidified moonlight, actual lunar light, compressed into mineral form. Pliny the Elder wrote that moonstone changed its appearance with the phases of the moon, waxing and waning in its internal glow as the moon itself waxed and waned. This is not true in any measurable sense. But look at a moonstone in lamplight. Watch the adularescence move. The light that seems to float inside it like something living, like something breathing. And the intuition that this stone has something to do with the moon is not difficult to understand. The people who named it were not wrong about what it feels like, only about where the feeling comes from. Fact 70. The moon moves away from the Earth by approximately 3.8 centimeters every year. Not dramatically, not visibly, not in any way perceptible to any human sense, but measurably. The laser-ranging experiments left on the lunar surface by Apollo missions allow scientists to measure the Earth-Moon distance with extraordinary precision by timing the return of laser pulses bounced off retroreflectors on the surface. The moon is receding. Slowly. The same tidal forces that locked the moon's rotation, the same friction that slowed the moon's spin over billions of years, are now transferring angular momentum from the Earth's rotation to the moon's orbit, gradually pushing the moon outward. 4 billion years ago, the moon was much closer. The tides were much higher. The nights were much brighter. Over time, the moon grows more distant, slower in its orbit, further away, as everything eventually grows more distant. Fact 71. The total solar eclipse, the moment when the moon passes exactly in front of the sun, covering it precisely, producing the extraordinary corona of the sun's outer atmosphere visible only in totality, is possible only because of a remarkable coincidence. The sun is approximately 400 times larger than the moon. The sun is approximately 400 times further away. These two facts cancel each other out perfectly. The sun and the moon appear exactly the same size in the Earth's sky. No other planet in the solar system has a moon that produces a perfect total solar eclipse. This is a coincidence of pure geometry, with no causal explanation. There is no reason it has to be this way. It simply is. And it will not always be this way, because the moon is moving away. The apparent size of the moon in the sky will very slowly decrease, and in approximately 600 million years, total solar eclipses will no longer be possible. We live in the exact window of time when the geometry works, when the moon precisely fits over the sun, when totality is possible. 600 million years of that window remaining, of which humanity has been aware of it for perhaps 50,000, the briefest possible fraction of a very particular kind of luck. The moon receding by 4 centimeters. The eclipse, a geometrical accident that will end. The heartbeat going in the dark. The moonstone breathing its adularescent light. The dreaming beneath the ordinary. The far side in its profound quiet. Outside the reach of every signal. Everything we have been gathering in this segment is about things that are not forever. The eclipse window closing. The moon moving away. The heartbeat temporary. The mythology shifting. But not yet. Not tonight. Tonight the eclipse geometry holds. Tonight the moon is at whatever distance it is tonight. Tonight the heartbeat goes on. In the dark. Without your help. You don't need to help it. It has this. Sleep. The moon knows things we are still working out. Not in the mythological sense. Not in the sense that a divine intelligence is keeping secrets in a jade palace. In the sense that the moon's existence, its position, its history, its behavior carry information about the Earth, the solar system, and the nature of planetary formation that we are still reading. The moon is an archive. Just as the Antarctic ice cores are an archive of Earth's atmospheric history. Just as the Babylonian clay tablets are an archive of ancient commerce. The moon is an archive of the early solar system, a record of the bombardment, the volcanism, the gravitational sorting that shaped everything we live on. Preserved in rock, on the surface of a world with no atmosphere, no weather, no erosion. Just the faithful, patient accumulation of impact craters. Each one a timestamp. Each one a record of a collision that happened once, and has been sitting there ever since, waiting to be read. Fact 72. The surface of the moon has not changed significantly in approximately 3 billion years. Without atmosphere, without water, without tectonic activity, without any of the geological processes that continuously resurface the Earth, erasing mountain ranges, filling ocean basins, burying the evidence of ancient impacts, the lunar surface preserves what fell on it. The oldest terrain on the moon, in the heavily cratered highlands of the far side, dates to approximately 4 billion years old, the same age as the oldest rocks ever found on Earth. The difference is that on Earth, rocks of that age are extraordinarily rare. Almost everything from the first billion years of Earth's history has been ground, melted, subducted, and reprocessed out of existence. On the moon, the first billion years of solar system history is still sitting on the surface, in full view. If you had the instruments to read it, we do now, and the reading is ongoing. Fact 73. The Inuit and other Arctic peoples developed lunar mythologies shaped by their particular relationship with light and dark, a relationship more extreme than that experienced by any other human culture. In the Arctic, the sun disappears entirely for months in winter. In that darkness, the moon becomes something different from what it is in temperate or tropical latitudes. It is not one light among several. It is the light. The Inuit moon deity, variously called Igaluk or Aningak depending on the regional tradition, is typically male, and his sister is the sun. In the origin myth, the moon and sun were once a brother and sister living together in a village. They were lovers. When the sister discovered the identity of her nocturnal visitor, holding a lamp up to his soot-blackened face, she was so horrified that she ran, carrying her lamp. He chased her. They ran until they became the sun and the moon. She carries the bright lamp. He carries the dimmer one, which is why the moon is less bright than the sun. And the chase continues, which is why the sun and the moon move across the sky, running, still. Fact 74. The moon has water, not liquid water on the surface. The vacuum and temperature extremes of the lunar surface would evaporate any exposed liquid instantly. But ice, confirmed by the Lacrosse mission in 2009, which deliberately crashed a rocket stage into a permanently shadowed crater near the lunar South Pole and analyzed the plume of material ejected. Water ice. Confirmed. Permanently shadowed craters at the lunar poles never receive sunlight. Their floors are among the coldest places in the solar system, colder than the surface of Pluto. And in that permanent shadow, water ice has accumulated, delivered by comets and asteroids over billions of years, and preserved because the cold is so complete and so ancient that even the extremely low vapor pressure of ice and vacuum is not enough to cause significant sublimation. Water, in the permanent shadow, at the coldest places the solar system offers. The moon is not dry. In its deepest dark, it holds water. The moon, holding water in its deepest shadow. The sun and her brother, still running. The far side, preserving 4 billion years of impact history. What the moon knows in its rock, in its ice, in its patient, airless, unweathered surface, is older than almost anything we can touch. The knowing that doesn't speak. The archive that doesn't announce itself. Just there, holding what it holds. In the cold and the dark. The way the night holds what it holds. In the cold and the dark. Right now. Fact 75. The Aztec calendar, the Tanalp Wali, was both a solar and a lunar document. The 18 months of the Aztec solar year were each associated with specific deities and rituals, many of them connected to the lunar cycle. But it is the Aztec understanding of lunar eclipses that most directly connects to the mythology of the dark side. In Aztec cosmology, the far side of the moon, conceptually, the side turned away, was associated with Tezcatlipoca, the god of the night sky, of darkness, of the obsidian smoking mirror through which he saw all things. Tezcatlipoca's mirror was black. Black because it was made of obsidian. And obsidian is volcanic glass, the same dark, reflective material that allows you to see your own reflection in the dark. The dark side of the moon, in Aztec understanding, was a mirror, showing the night sky to itself, in obsidian, in the darkest, most reflective material there is. The side that looks away from us is looking at the stars, reflecting them back to each other, in the God's dark mirror. Fact 76. The new moon in the Jewish tradition, Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month, is a minor festival observed across Jewish communities worldwide. It was historically considered a holiday particularly for women, a reward, according to one midrashic tradition, for refusing to donate their gold jewelry for the construction of the golden calf while the Israelites wandered in the desert. The men gave their gold for the idol. The women withheld theirs. And the moon, which similarly withstood a kind of diminishment, having been reduced from its original equal size with the sun, was given to the women as their especial observance. The moon, as a figure of withholding and resilience, of not giving your gold away, of being diminished and persisting anyway, still marking the months, still rising, still there. Fact 77. The shadow of the moon during a total solar eclipse moves across the Earth's surface at approximately 1,700 kilometers per hour. The shadow is a circle, approximately 100 to 200 kilometers in diameter, depending on the geometry of the specific eclipse. It crosses entire continents in minutes. And within that circle, that brief moving circle of totality, it is as dark as night. The birds stop singing and go to roost. The temperature drops. The horizon, in all directions, glows with the pink light of sunrise and sunset simultaneously. Because outside the shadow, the rest of the sky is still in daylight. And overhead, the corona, the sun's outer atmosphere, visible only in totality, streaming outward in structures of extraordinary complexity. For a few minutes, in a circle of temporary night, moving at 1,700 kilometers per hour, across the face of the world. Fact 78. The far side of the moon is the quietest place in the accessible universe for radio astronomy. On the near side, the Earth is an overwhelming source of radio frequency interference. Human communications, broadcasting, radar, and the general electromagnetic noise of a technological civilization create a background that makes certain kinds of radio astronomy nearly impossible. On the far side, the lunar mass itself blocks all of this. Radio telescopes placed on the far side of the moon would have an unobstructed view of the universe at radio frequencies that are almost impossible to observe from Earth. This includes very low-frequency radio waves, the kind produced by processes in the very early universe, the echoes of the first stars. A radio telescope on the far side of the moon could listen to the early universe, to signals from the first billion years of cosmic time, which have been traveling toward us for over 12 billion years, and which we currently cannot hear, because of the noise we make. The far side of the moon, the only quiet place, where the oldest signals in the universe could finally be received. Fact 79. The moon's gravitational influence stabilizes the Earth's axial tilt. Without the moon, computer models suggest that the Earth's axial tilt, currently approximately 23.5 degrees, which produces our seasons, would vary chaotically over geological time, potentially swinging from nearly 0 to over 85 degrees. At 85 degrees, the poles would receive direct sunlight in summer. The tropics would barely see the sun at all. The seasons would be so extreme that the climate of the planet would oscillate wildly. The stable seasons we have, the predictable spring, the reliable summer, the certain return of warmth after cold, may be a product of the moon. Not just light at night, not just tides, not just the calendar for planting and harvest, the seasons themselves, the stability that makes long-term agriculture possible, that makes civilization possible, that made the particular human history we have had possible, may be, in part, a gift of the moon. The mythology was right about the significance. It just didn't know the mechanism. Fact 80. The moon appears in the world's oldest known engraving. At least one candidate for the world's oldest engraving. A bone found at Blanchard, France, dating to approximately 25,000 years ago, is engraved with a series of marks arranged in a serpentine pattern. Various researchers have proposed that this pattern represents a lunar tally, a record of the phases of the moon across approximately 2 months, marked night by night on a piece of bone by someone sitting by firelight in Paleolithic France. The interpretation is contested, but if correct, the first known attempt by human beings to make a permanent record of anything was a record of the moon's phases. Before cave painting as we commonly understand it, before any other known form of systematic notation, the first thing a human being felt strongly enough to engrave in bone was the moon, going through its phases, 25,000 years ago, by firelight, still going. The first engraving, the moon, carved in bone, by firelight, 25,000 years ago, and tonight the same moon, still going through its phases, still marking the same cycle, still stabilizing the axial tilt, still holding its ice, still reflecting in Tezcatlipoca's obsidian mirror, still being withheld by the women who wouldn't give their gold, still running, the sun chasing the moon, still being watched, the way it has always been watched, since before there was anything to watch it with, since before there was anyone. And here you are, one of the ones who watches, or rather, one of the ones who watch today, who is now letting the watching go, letting the moon watch itself, into the far radio quiet side, into the early universe's signals, into the oldest quiet there is. That oldest quiet is yours. Tonight, sleep. We are at the last corridor, the last 20 facts, and somewhere in the journey from the tidal locking that turned the moon's face permanently toward us, billions of years ago, before there was anyone to see it, to the bone at Blanchard with its lunar tally carved by firelight 25,000 years ago, to the radio quiet far side waiting to receive the first star signals. Something has become clear, not a conclusion. The moon does not yield to conclusions. A feeling, the feeling of having spent time with something very large and very old and very patient. The feeling of having walked around it, mythology and science and poetry and eclipse drums and jade palaces and the heartbeat on the album, and found that no single walk around it reveals the whole thing. It always has another face. Always, from wherever you are standing, there is a side you cannot see. And the side you cannot see is not the dark side. It is simply the other side. The one facing somewhere else. Equally real. Equally illuminated. Just not by you. And that, perhaps, is what the moon has always been for. To remind us that everything has another face. That the part we cannot see exists. That what turns away from us is not gone. Fact 81. In the literary tradition of Romanticism, the movement in European art and poetry in the late 18th and early 19th centuries that placed feeling, nature, and the sublime at the center of human experience, the moon became the supreme symbol. Not the sun with its clarity and its reason. The moon, with its ambiguity, its changeability, its capacity to make the ordinary strange. John Keats wrote to the moon. Percy Shelley wrote to the moon. William Blake saw in the moon's light a world of imagination that the sun's light made invisible. The romantic moon was specifically the moon at night, not the moon of the astronomer, not the moon of the farmer or the priestess, the moon of the sleepless person, standing at a window, looking at the thing that was looking back. Fact 82. The moon is the most written about object in the history of human literature. Not approximately, not by some measures, by every measure that has been applied. More poems, more novels, more plays, more songs, more myths, more prayers, more scientific papers, more personal letters, more diary entries mention the moon than any other specific object in the natural world. The moon is the most linguistically present thing in the sky, the most addressed, the most confided in, the most blamed and thanked and named and navigated by, not because it is the largest celestial body, or the brightest or the most important astronomically, but because it is the closest, because it is the right size to look at, because it changes, and because it has always, since the first human being looked up at it, seemed to be looking back. Fact 83. The Apollo missions brought back approximately 382 kilograms of lunar rock. These samples, collected from 6 landing sites on the near side of the moon, distributed to research institutions around the world, have been studied continuously for over 50 years. They have not stopped yielding information. New analytical techniques applied to the same samples continue to reveal new things about the composition of the moon, the history of the solar system, the nature of the materials that form the planets. 382 kilograms of the moon, on Earth, in laboratories, being asked questions we didn't know to ask 50 years ago, and answering them. Fact 84. The far side of the moon has no Maria, no large dark lava plains, because its crust is thicker. The near side's thinner crust was breached more easily by ancient volcanic eruptions, allowing lava to well up from the mantle and flood the large impact basins, creating the dark plains we see as the man in the moon, the rabbit, the face. The far side's thicker crust resisted this, so the far side is almost entirely highland terrain. Pale, heavily cratered, ancient. The near side is the face that shows us the dark plains. The face shaped by the Earth's gravitational influence. The face changed by its relationship to us. And the far side, unchanged by that relationship, is what the moon looks like when it faces away. More ancient, more uniform, more itself, perhaps. Fact 85. The concept of the moon as a clock is one of the oldest and most universal in human history. Not a clock in the mechanical sense, a clock in the sense of a reliable, regular, repeating marker of the passage of time. The day is the Earth's clock, one rotation. The year is the sun's clock, one orbit. And the month, in almost every human calendar, is the moon's clock. The English word month comes directly from moon, as does the word Monday, moon's day. The French word for month is mois, from the same root. The word menstrual comes from the Latin menses, month, moon, measure from the same root again. The moon is embedded in the language of time at the deepest level. The measuring began with the moon, and every time you use the word month or Monday or measure, you are, without knowing it, saying moon. Fact 86. The Chinese Mid-Autumn Festival, Zhongqiujia, is celebrated on the 15th day of the 8th lunar month, when the moon is fullest and brightest in the autumn sky. It is one of the most important festivals in the Chinese calendar. The foods associated with it are round mooncakes, round pastries with rich fillings, their circular shape echoing the full moon above. The festival is about reunion, the gathering of family, the completeness of the full circle, the return of scattered people to the same table. The moon as a symbol of wholeness, of the full thing, of the circle closed. Chang'e is present in the festival, the goddess alone in her jade palace on the moon, looking down at the family reunions below, the lonely moon, presiding over togetherness, the isolated figure, witness to connection, the face turned toward the earth, seeing everything. Fact 87. The moon's phases have a name in almost every language ever documented. The crescent, the half, the gibbous, the full. These shapes or shapes like them are among the most universally named visual phenomena in human history. The gibbous moon, the phase between half and full, when more than half but not all of the face is illuminated, has one of the most interesting etymologies. Gibbous comes from the Latin gibbosus, meaning humped. The humped moon. The moon with a hump. The moon in its awkward middle phase, neither half nor full, neither one thing nor the other. The gibbous moon as the moon in transition, not yet what it is becoming, still in the between. Fact 88. The earliest known map of the moon was drawn by the astronomer Thomas Harriot in 1609, the same year as Galileo's observations, and possibly a few months earlier. Harriot used a telescope to observe and sketch the lunar surface in July 1609. His drawings show craters, Maria, and the terminator, the line between the lit and unlit portions of the lunar surface. He did not publish his drawings. Galileo published his and received the credit. Harriot's maps were found in his papers after his death, and so the first map of the moon, the first human attempt to document what could be seen of the lunar surface, sat unpublished in a drawer while Galileo changed the world. Not because it was wrong, because it was not shared. The lesson of Thomas Harriot: the map in the drawer changes nothing. The map in the world changes everything. Fact 89. There is a crater on the far side of the moon named Daedalus, after the craftsman of Greek myth who built the labyrinth of Crete and fashioned wings of feathers and wax for himself and his son Icarus. The wings that let them fly, and the wings that, when Icarus flew too close to the sun, melted and sent him falling into the sea. Daedalus on the far side. The craftsman on the hidden face. Not Icarus, who fell, but Daedalus. Who made the thing that flew? Who survived? Who built? On the side turned away from the earth. On the side that faces the solar system. The craftsman. Facing outward. Fact 90. The mythology of the dark side of the moon reaches its most modern and most unexpected expression in the theory, not widely accepted by scientists but persistently circulating in popular culture, that the far side of the moon hides something. Alien structures. Secret bases. Evidence of a presence that does not want to be seen. The theory has no scientific basis. The far side has been photographed, mapped, and orbited extensively. There are no alien structures, no secret bases, just craters and highland terrain and the ancient battered rock of a world that has been receiving cosmic impacts for 4 billion years. But the persistence of the theory is itself interesting. It is, in structure, the same as every other dark side myth. The assumption that what we cannot see from here is hiding something, that the turned-away face conceals something significant, that the unknown is not merely unknown but is unknown for a reason. The same impulse that produced Plutarch's Intermediate Souls and Nana's Underworld Journey and Chang'e's Jade Palace applied to the language of the contemporary imagination. The myth is still the myth. Only the names have changed. Fact 91. The moon has been proposed as the location for a lunar library, a repository of human knowledge, preserved in a form that could survive a civilization-ending catastrophe on Earth. The permanently shadowed craters at the poles, with their stable cold temperatures and isolation from solar weather, have been seriously discussed as potential storage locations. The idea: if something happened to Earth, an asteroid impact, a pandemic, a nuclear exchange, the library on the moon would survive. The knowledge would survive. The record of everything human beings had learned and made and thought and felt, preserved on the moon. where it had always been preserved, in a sense. In the stories, in the myths, in the tidal locking that holds the same face toward us, in the monthly cycle that has been teaching the same lesson for as long as there have been students. The moon as a library, which it has always been. Fact 92. The Artemis program, NASA's ongoing program to return humans to the moon, with the goal of establishing a long-term presence, is named for the goddess of the moon and the hunt, the twin of Apollo. After the Apollo missions of the 1960s and 1970s, the return is named for Apollo's sister, Artemis, the huntress, the goddess of the threshold, the moon's energy, not its light. The program aims to land the first woman and the first person of color on the lunar surface, a moon that has been associated with women for all of recorded human history. In myth after myth after myth, across every continent, receiving the first women who walk on it. The mythology and the science coming into alignment, again, as they always seem to eventually. Fact 93. The far side of the moon received its first soft landing in January 2019. The Chinese spacecraft Chang'e 4, named of course for the moon goddess, landed in the von Karman crater on the far side, accompanied by the small rover Yutu. Because the far side has no direct line of sight to Earth, communication with the lander and rover was relayed through a satellite called Keiqiao, the Magpie Bridge, positioned at the L2 Lagrange point above the far side. A Magpie Bridge. In Chinese mythology, the Magpie Bridge is the structure formed by magpies across the Milky Way that allows the two lovers Xinu and Niulong to meet once a year, on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month. The relay satellite that allows communication between the far side and the Earth, named for the mythological bridge between separated lovers. The science and the myth in the same name, on the far side of the moon. Fact 94. The far side of the moon, seen from the surface, shows an Earth-free sky. From the near side, the Earth hangs in the sky. It does not rise or set, because the moon's rotation is locked, so the Earth stays in roughly the same position above the horizon, varying only slightly in position and waxing and waning through its own phases as the moon orbits. From the far side, there is no Earth in the sky, just stars, just the solar system, just the universe, without the blue planet that sent the rover to stand on this particular crater floor. The far side of the moon is the only place in the near solar system from which the Earth is entirely invisible. You could stand on the far side and not know from looking at the sky that the Earth existed. Just stars. Just the dark. Just you. Fact 95. The moon's face is made of regolith, pulverized rock, the result of billions of years of meteorite impacts grinding the surface layer into a fine gray powder. Astronauts who walked on the moon described the regolith as having a quality unlike any terrestrial soil. It stuck to everything. It was extremely fine, with sharp edges on the microscopic particles, not rounded by water or wind, as terrestrial soil particles are, but angular, fresh, preserved in the same state they were in when they were created. The lunar regolith smelled, when astronauts removed their helmets inside the landing module, of gunpowder. The moon smells of gunpowder. Not of cheese. Not of jade. Not of anything mythology prepared anyone to encounter. Just gunpowder. The smell of impact. Of something that hit hard and left its mark. Fact 96. The moon appears in the last line of James Joyce's Ulysses. The novel's final word is yes, Molly Bloom's great affirmative soliloquy, one of the most famous passages in the English language, which traces the flow of her thoughts through the night and ends with her memory of saying yes to Leopold Bloom and saying yes to life. But earlier in that same soliloquy, Molly looks at the moon. She mentions it briefly, in the middle of her cascading thoughts. Just the moon, present, in the stream, as it always is, in the stream of consciousness, in the middle of the night. in the greatest novel in the English language. Just there, as it always has been. Fact 97. The most recent nation to reach the moon is India. In August 2023, the Chandrayaan-3 mission landed its Vikram lander near the lunar South Pole. The first mission to successfully land near the poles, close to the permanently shadowed craters where water ice has been confirmed. The name Vikram means valor in Sanskrit. The rover it deployed is called Pragyan, wisdom. Valor and wisdom. On the moon. Near the ice. Near the permanent shadow. Near the place that is always dark. Fact 98. The mythology of the moon did not end with the space age. It adapted. The moon in contemporary culture carries all of its old associations. The feminine, the cyclical, the romantic, the dangerous, and has added new ones from the science. The dark side as the metaphor for the hidden self, as we noted. The full moon as the occasion for gathering, for ceremony, for deliberate attention to something larger than the everyday. The crescent as the symbol of renewal, as it has been for 5,000 years. None of the old meanings have been emptied out by the photographs. They have been supplemented. The moon in the 21st century carries everything it has always carried, plus the knowledge of what it actually is, and both are richer for each other. Fact 99. The last human being to stand on the moon was Gene Cernan, the commander of Apollo 17. He left the lunar surface on December 14, 1972. His last act before climbing the ladder of the lunar module was to trace his daughter's initials, TDC, for Tracy Dawn Cernan, in the lunar dust. In regolith. In the surface that does not weather. That does not erode. That preserves what is written in it. His daughter's initials. In the lunar dust. Still there. 50 years later. On the Taurus Littrow Valley. On the near side. On the face that looks toward Earth. Toward home. Fact 100. The last fact is not about the dark side. It is about the near side. The face that is always turned toward you. The face that has been turned toward every human being who has ever lived. The same face. Watching the Paleolithic painter by firelight. Watching the Babylonian astronomer with his clay tablet. Watching Sappho compose her poems. Watching Galileo put his eye to his telescope. Watching Neil Armstrong take his first steps. Watching Gene Cernan write his daughter's initials in the dust. Watching you. Right now. In the dark. In the quiet of the night. In the moment that is this moment which the moon is present for, as it has been present for every moment since it was formed. The same face. Unchanged in any way you could perceive. Looking. And the dark side, the far side, the other face, the hemisphere turned away from Earth, is out there too. Looking at the stars. Looking at Jupiter and Saturn and the outer reaches of the solar system. Looking at what we cannot see from here. Completing the picture. Being the other side. As everything has another side. As you have another side. The part that faces inward. The part that no one sees from outside. The part that is dark not because it receives no light, but because it is turned away, toward whatever is deepest in you. Tonight, the far side of yourself, looking in the dark, in the quiet, in the kept and patient and moonlit dark, that has been here since before there was anyone to be here in it, and will be hereafter, and is here now. For you. Sleep. The near side, watching. The far side, listening for the first stars. Gene Cernan's daughter's initials, in the dust. Changa in her jade palace. Nana in his boat on the underworld river. The rabbit, grinding. The woodcutter, cutting. The drum, silenced after the eclipse. The moon always coming back. Selene, descending to the cave. Endymion, sleeping. The bone at Blanchard, its tally complete. The heartbeat going. In the dark. Without your help. The moon is doing what it does. As it always has. As it always will. For 600 million more years of total eclipses. For another 3.8 centimeters of recession per year. For as many more months as months have left. And you, in your particular dark on your particular night, are the latest in the unbroken line of people who looked all the way back to the bone, all the way back to the fire, and felt something. That is enough. To be part of that line, to have looked. Today, that is enough. Close your eyes. The moon has the watching. Sleep.